Hey, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Be Real. I am going to introduce, I've been really excited to work with wonderful women. I know that I get a lot of men on this, on this podcast. And so I've been really focusing on bringing in powerful women. And I heard Elisabeth Villiger Toufexis on Clubhouse a few weeks ago, and her story just really reached out to me because she's accomplished so much in her lifetime. And she's always had what a lot of people would consider the underdog story, right? She could have made an excuse as to why she's not going to be successful. She could have made the excuse as to why she's not going to have a life of power. She could have made an excuse to just sit back and be the victim. But even though she was born to a mom who was only 16 years old, she had a grandpa who was able to take her in and really kind of help mold her. And when she was young, around the age of 13, I don't want to give too much of your story away, Elisabeth, but at around 13, she wanted to run away because everybody knew her business in the small little village that she lived in. And she started working in hotels, and she started working in a ski resort, and she became a travel agent, and she walked into a Tony Robbins seminar, and like all these synchronicities came into play in her life because she was a victim, not a victim, she was a victor. Because if she would have played the victim role, she would have never taken the risk and stepped out and went out on her own and did the things that she did. She's now the director of, and you can see if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see she's a director of the Women's Club. She's the director in two different areas, New York and Cyprus. And it's a club that helps women network and connect and grow their power in the business world and connect on a personal and a business level. So it's really exciting that you're here today. And without further ado, you are the star here on Be Real. Elisabeth, the mic is yours. Thank you.
I am really excited to be here. Hi, Vikram. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Well, you've already said everything about me. I don't think that there is anything else to say.
No, I gave the highlights. I barely touched the surface. There's so much. We should have just recorded the Clubhouse conversation we had, and that would have
we could have been done with it.
No, but this is way more fun. So tell me, this podcast, as you saw, it's all about people's stories and transformations. And it's all about people that could be a victim, because we all have a story that would allow us to be a victim, but it's about becoming the victor of your life and your story. And it's how did you go from, where you went to where you're at now, the director of a global women's club that actually helps other women empower themselves, which I think is badass.
Yeah, I also, when I started training as a life coach, I just don't like victimhood. I don't like people who are always finding excuses, but I just know that we have so much more power than we think we do. And when I was young, when I was 13, I must have had some kind of, some gene that was inside of me that just made me a fighter. I did not like the place where I was. I didn't like the place where I was born, which is a beautiful village in the Swiss mountains, this picture book land. But I didn't like the people who were judging me for something that wasn't my mistake. I mean, that's victimhood, saying that it's not my mistake. And maybe I chose my parents. Maybe I did. I don't know. That's something that we don't know. But if I did, then I definitely learned that this is not what I want. And I just, as you said, I planned my escape. I wanted to get out of there. I was bullied at school. I was bullied even by teachers. And I think sometimes in today's world, that would be, this it couldn't happen anymore. But I turned 60 in December.
I think it still happens a lot.
Well, if it still happens, then it's disgusting and it shouldn't happen. But so anyway, I just wanted to go, and I started working. I knew, and this is one thing that I always knew, I wanted to be financially free. Financial freedom is very important. And for a woman, it's even more important. I mean, just saying, because I know, especially now from the Global Woman Club and the Global Woman Stories, how many women are staying in a very, very sad and complicated relationship just because they are not financially free. And for me, that was a thing. I knew that money will set me free. I love money. And I don't love money because I want to buy expensive handbags. I love money because it gives me freedom to do what I want to do. And I knew it then. And what I needed then at this age was I wanted to learn languages because I wanted to get away. My mother tongue is German. So I knew I needed to speak English because the world speaks English. And I knew that I needed to speak French because I wanted to work for a Swiss tour operator. And our Swiss people are half French and German speaking. So that's what I did. And off I went when I was 19 and a half. I was too young to work for the Swiss tour operator. So I actually applied with a company in Greece. And I recently started a podcast and I'm talking about my times as a tour guide in Greece. And it was like modern slavery, what I did there, because this guy, I earned nothing, but I just wanted to be there. I had reached my dream. I was a tour guide. That's what I wanted to be. I was away. But you see, one thing that I did learn and that I can tell, it was an important experience is that even if you go far away, you take your problems with you. My low self-esteem and my not being wanted was still there, even though nobody knew anymore who I was. Nobody knew anymore where I came from, but I did. I knew. I still had to do the work.
Well, you said a couple of things that I want to touch on. And the reason why I feel really blessed to have such a powerful woman on is because I heard Kim Kiyosaki, who's Robert Kiyosaki's wife, which is the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. She said in an interview that 40 to 60% of women stay in unhappy marriages because they were never taught financial literacy. Right? They don't know the word. Like, there's a language for sports. There's a language for stocks. There's a language for cryptocurrency. There's a language for business. And there's a language for finances. And women weren't taught that language. And so they don't understand the game. And people say it's a man's game. And I say, no, it's just an education game, right? Yes, there's masculine energy in business because that's the driving force, but it's not a man or a woman's game. It's just the education wasn't available for women back in the day. And she says that 40 to 60% of women stay in unhappy relationships because they just don't have the confidence in themselves to get out. And they're probably in unhappy relationships because they don't have the confidence in themselves to stand up to the husband who is treating them the way that he's treating them, because he has the knowledge of the game. He knows how to move the chess play pieces around the board, and she doesn't. And so she's a big advocate, just like I think what you were saying, she's a big advocate of teaching financial literacy to women so that they don't have to stick around, or they can, when things get ugly, it's like, look, you can't control me with money, right? And so the saying where a lot of women now are saying, I don't need a man. I hate that saying because I need a woman as much as a woman needs a man. But I think what they're trying to say is, I don't need your money for control. Like, I want to be an equal partner in I want to be treated equally in the relationship because I understand the knowledge. I understand the game that is being played. And so, I wanted to touch base on that because I think it's really important, one, for men, because, a lot of my audience is men. I think it's important for men to realize that, hey, let's look at ourselves and be a partner to our spouse. Like, we chose this person. We don't have to, nobody has to marry anybody. We choose the person. So let's level both of us up at the same time and be equal partners. And then two, let's get the literacy out there for everything, because the knowledge is available, the platforms are available. Now it's just to make sure that, because it's not just a one-sided party's responsibility, it's everybody's responsibility. Everybody's responsibility to get equal footing. So I'm really excited. And then the other thing you said, which is completely true, is that we take our programming with us. So we can leave where we came from, but that doesn't mean that we left our programming. And most people from the ages of 0 to 6, right? You'll hear this on all of my stories. From 0 to 6 is when we're programmed. And if we don't back that up and change our programming. Like, you know, my iPhone's updating itself all the time automatically. It's like, oh, you got a new update. I'm like, I didn't want that, but it updates it all the time. It's the same thing. If we don't update our old brain, which, you know, the back of our brain is what's called our fight or flight. If we don't take that and say, hey, we don't need that anymore, and get to the front part of our brain where we can actually do the programming, we're always going to be in that 0 to 6 stage of our life. And we're making $1 million decisions with a 6-year-old brain. So how did you get out of that?
I just want to add something to what you said before about the financial part. And Kim Kiyosaki is actually a friend of the Global Woman Club, because Mirella Sula, the founder, is a good friend of Kim Kiyosaki. And but what I want to say about women, you know, it's not only men. I believe that it's a matter of communication. You see, when you are in love and when you get married, people just believe that they can change somebody, and you cannot change. When you see that there is something, there's a character flaw, you know, there should be a warning sign. That's another thing that we are not taught. I think if you make things, when you make things very clear, because I believe that there is nothing wrong with women who choose to stay home.
No.
They can, you know, but if you have a husband then who makes you feel bad about not having any money because you stay home, that's when the problems start.
Right.
So if you make it clear, you know, I'm staying home, we have enough income, you are getting, I don't know. I had, for example, when I got together with my husband, I came from Switzerland where I had a huge salary, and I came here where I was crying when the first time I got my first paycheck, because it was ridiculous. But, you know, I had a credit card from his bank account at the time, and I was never asked, you know, if I charged 20,000. He probably would have said something, but I never did. But, you know, things have to be clear. Clarity is important in a relationship. Every relationship, not just a man and a woman, but generally. And now, how did I get out of that programming? Yes, because my programming was, as you know, we said we are allowed to swear. My programming was shit, because I was, you know, I wasn't worth anything. Nobody wanted me. I was also told that I will never achieve anything. I will never amount to anything. And I was working as a tour guide, and I was moving up in the world. I was actually going from Greece. Then I started having my first destination on another continent. I went to Tunisia, so I went to Africa. Then I went to the Maldives, and then I started doing round trips. And I was going to the States, to Australia. I was really having the time of my life. And I was young and gorgeous and blonde and long-legged. And I was still unhappy, you know, because I still had that programming. Of course, I just pretended everything was okay. You know, I never had this, oh my God, what a poor thing am I? But I knew that there was something wrong. I knew that I wasn't, my mind didn't work the way I wanted it to work. I didn't have the confidence that I saw in other people. And one day on a Florida round trip, I always took my clients there for lunch and to do some shopping. I was walking around, and I went into this bookshop, and I found a book. I bought this book, and you see, we never find books by chance. Books speak to us, so we picked them up. So I picked up that book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And I'm telling you, that was in 1989. In 1989, not many people were into personal development.
No.
And I went to the hotel with my guests, and I dropped them off. I waited until everybody was in their rooms. I went to my room, and I started reading, and I couldn't stop reading. I couldn't believe, you know, the stuff that was written in there. I did not know that I had a subconscious mind. I did not know that I had. Yeah. So I started waking up. I think that was my wake up call that night. Obviously, you know, it didn't do everything, but I understood I can set goal, and I can focus on things. And if I focus on those goals, I can reach them. And if I chunk down those goals in smaller chunks, I can, anyway, you know how goal setting is done. So, and then
sure. Elisabeth, you know, I think a lot of people today don't realize they have a subconscious mind. I think a lot of people don't realize that there's 40,000 thoughts that go on in their subconscious mind every day. And they're the same thoughts that go on. Like, I have a note on my computer that says, I'm always a badass. Right? Like, I'm programming in my brain, I'm always a badass. Like, I have another note on here because Ken Honda talks about the arigato of money. And so when I get a opportunity to pay somebody else for a service they provide, right? See, instead of calling it a bill, it's an opportunity to pay somebody else for the service that they provide. It's because I have on my desk arigato and 2 money signs. So when money comes in, I say arigato, right? We always say, we're always excited when money comes in, but when we have to deliver the money out, we don't get excited. But if you get as excited for delivering the money out, because you know you're closing that karmic loop, you're reprogramming your subconscious mind to love money in and love money out. It's just, oh, it's just coming and going. No big deal. Just coming and going, just like food. It comes in, it goes out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we got to reprogram our minds. So I think it's important that, you know, it's funny that this guy's name is Joe and Dr. Joe Dispenza too. I guess if you're talking about the subconscious mind, your name has to be Joe.
But, you know, I mean, 95% of everything we do is driven by the subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind is filled with limiting beliefs, with memories that are unprocessed, with negative emotions, with values that are not congruent. And if we don't find out what's in our subconscious mind, if we don't sort things out in there, we will be driven by those memories and by those beliefs that are not good for us. And habits, of course, habits that were created. I mean, when I see people sometimes who come to see me for a coaching session, people who have been trying to lose weight for so many years, and their mind has been programmed by their parents by telling them that if you finish your plate, if you eat all your food, you're a good girl. And this is how, you know, and this or and so on, a million things. Money is not, this is not for us. We are not the kind of people who are rich. We cannot afford this. Right. And this is all programming that stays in there. And of course, this can all be changed by people like you and me, by seeing a coach, or by going to see a professional, or even if you don't want to go and see somebody, there is so much stuff available on the internet. You can do a lot of it yourself, but you have to do it. Nobody is going to do it for you. This is one thing that is important. Nobody is going to come and knock on your door and say, hey, would you like to be happier? Would you like to have a better programmed subconscious mind? No, it's not going to happen. And, that's where the victim mentality comes in. But poor me, nobody told me anything. Well, everything is free. When I think, and when I have to go back to my podcast, because when I was a tour guide in the 80s, there were no cell phones. There was no Google. We had a telex. I don't know if you even know what a telex is. You see, it's a text system, but it's you're typing something in one country and then it's typed in the other country. Oh, wow. And then during the time that I was when I was working in New York, I think we had a fax. We got the first fax machine. That was a sensation. Yeah. And but I just want to come back to my waking up. I also want to tell the Tony Robbins bit.
Oh, yes, because I'm a Tony Robbins fan too.
I was working in California. I was working out of LA. I was doing tours in the West, and I was between two tours. There were like departures and arrivals, and I was hanging around this holiday, some hotel in LA, somewhere in LA. And I wasn't going to go sightseeing because sightseeing was my job. So I was looking for something to do. And I was walking around the hotel and I saw this ballroom with a sign saying public speaking seminar. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's interesting. That's what I do. I'm a public speaker, because as a tour guide, you are a public speaker. You speak to people all the time. So, and I still don't know up until today if I actually paid for this seminar, because I just went into this room and this freak in a yellow t-shirt and shorts was giving this public speaking seminar, which was fantastic. And I bought his book at the end, which was Unlimited Power, and it was Tony Robbins. And that Unlimited Power book, and gradually that's when I started. I knew what I wanted. I knew how to set goals. I knew how to dream big. If your goals don't scare you, they're not big enough. And I started dreaming really big, and I started understanding that when you know what you want and you focus on what you want, then you will have all the opportunities appear. And that's how you grow. You will, because of course, when the opportunities appear, you have to take them. Right. Because if you always say no every time you see this opportunity that would bring you closer to your goal, but then you say, no, I'm not sure. Maybe I shouldn't. No, not this time. Okay, then it's not going to happen. You have to take a leap of faith sometimes.
Yeah, so you were this 13-year-old girl that grew up in a small village that came with the mindset that nobody wants me and I'm not going to amount to anything because, you grew up in a very religious area. You took off, you decided to start working at a young age. Um, it doesn't sound like you had a college education.
No, I didn't. I had an apprenticeship. In Switzerland, we have this system of doing an apprenticeship, which was a good education. And I also, because languages at that time, in those years, they were valuable. It's not like now, but at that time, if you had an apprenticeship and a couple of 2, 3 languages, you got a job. It was okay. But I didn't go to college. No, I never did.
So you didn't have and in college, don't get me started on our college system. I think it served a purpose, just like our education system served a purpose. But if our education system taught things like manifestation and meditation, and I was in a clubhouse room last night, and this wonderful woman kept saying, "My kid has ADD. My kid has ADD, and he's not motivated by anything." I said, and one of the ladies in there said, "Well, if he's not motivated by anything, what does he do with his time all day?" And she said, "Well, he plays video games." And she said, "Okay, well, when he plays video games, is he motivated?" She says, "Oh, he can play nonstop." Okay, well, and then when he plays video games, does he lose anything? "Oh, no, he's super organized. He's got all of his data and all of his little people and players and teams and all this stuff. He can rattle that off for hours and hours." She says, so what I told her was, I said, stop labeling your kid as ADD. Maybe he's just hyper focused on certain things, right? And the government doesn't understand how to teach people like that, or it takes more resources, or it's because I could be considered somebody with ADD. If you look around my room outside of the camera, I mean, it's like a little Tasmanian devil came in and just flew through everything. But I know where everything's at. It's just, that's just how I operate. My brain is different than other people's. And so I said, stop telling him what he should do and start asking him what he wants. Like, stop being that safety net for him, right? Start allowing him to explore and start to being a man and start to being a human and just make mistakes and screw shit up. And, he's going to break things and he's going to fail at things. And that's okay, because as you fail and you achieve, you get confidence, and you fail and you achieve, you get confidence. You fall, you get up, you get confidence. And you develop that skill, whether you know it or not. I'm sure you know it now, but you didn't know it at a 13-year-old age. You didn't know that by going out there and getting a job, you were actually increasing your confidence in yourself. And maybe, you know it now, but the hardship that you went through, being born in a society where you weren't accepted because of a choice that you couldn't even control. You didn't even have control over the choice. And that people saying the things that they said to you is what allowed you to have so much strength. Because I'm sure if you would have asked, the 29-year-old self who picked up the book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind, or the 29 or 30-year-old woman that walked into the Tony Robbins seminar by accident, right? There's no accidents, there's just coincidences. You saw the door, you opened it, you went in, you said, "Oh, wow, this sounds good." You picked up the book, you bought it, you read it, and now you're sitting here as the director of a women's club in 2 different countries. Like, I'm sure at 30 years old, you would have never expected to be in the position you're in today, right?
No, but I knew that's when I realized that I had potential. That's when I realized, when I read those books and when I found out what can happen, I knew that anything is possible. And I also knew, and I know, maybe I didn't know it that much, but I also know today, but things don't happen overnight. I don't like these getting rich overnight ideas, and you can change everything overnight. Things take time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it happens. And every little step, no matter how big it is, it brings you forward. Once you realize that you can make things happen, then you move forward. What is it? You don't need to see the whole staircase to take the first step, but you take it. If you don't take it, you'll just stay there. And I knew that I could achieve things. I knew that I had much more power. I just found out that I had power. I found out that I can create, and I loved that. I loved the idea. I also knew that I wanted to get married. I wanted to have kids, and I wanted to. You were saying before about how kids are labeled, and how the school system is just putting them in boxes, into drawers. And I didn't bring up my kids like that. Obviously, they had to go to school. It's not like, you couldn't say I'm not going to. But I think we cannot just blame the school system. We have to do our job as parents, because we have a lot. If you just say, oh well, the school is rubbish, and we have to do our work. And I traveled with my kids. I traveled all over the place with my children, because I was dying to travel after being 11 years as a tour guide. I just wanted to make sure that they like traveling. And that's a very good education, teaching children, showing children the world. And bringing up kids is leading by example. You cannot expect your children to do anything if you don't do it yourself. If you're rude to people, don't expect your kids to say thank you and please.
Right.
The education system, I believe that children should be taught emotional intelligence. They should be taught how to deal with their feelings, how to there's a million things that kids should be taught, but unfortunately they're not. I don't know, how are we going to change it? I don't know, but we can definitely do our job as parents.
And we don't. Unfortunately, the school systems I'm very opinionated, and my opinions are very strong, and they're rooted in the fact that we've known about manifestation. People talk about manifestation. People talk about the power of the subconscious mind. People show you that, by doing hard things, it calluses the mind, and having a strong mind creates the opportunity, right? We know that if we give our kids everything, or if you give anybody everything, they're not going to step up. They're going to fall lower and lower and lower. So it's why the homeless population doesn't necessarily get better, because they're not given the tools, they're just given stuff. And we live in a world right now, I was listening to a podcast this morning, we live in a world right now where we're hyper focusing on the things that scare people in every aspect. And so it goes from one fear to another fear to another fear. And then you get social media where everybody has to be liked, instead of having connection, which is what creates confidence, and it creates motivation, and it creates acceptance of yourself, right? When you connect, like I had to reach out to you and say, hey, Elisabeth, let's connect, right? I reached out and I said, I like your story, and I like how you've overcome so much adversity in your life. Let's connect. And then we talked a little bit more, and I said, I'd love to have you on my podcast. I could have focused on all the negative, and we could have gone down a different rabbit hole, right? But this world we live in, where 2015, when girls started getting on Instagram, they posted a picture of themselves, in a nice outfit, 5 likes. They posted a picture of their butts and their boobs, 100 likes. Well, now over time, because we've become so accustomed to seeing certain things, the outfits are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller to get the likes to go up and up and up and up. And people, because they don't build that muscle of confidence in themselves, because they're not taught how, they don't know how to appreciate themselves. Like you said, you were the blonde with long legs and this, that, and the other, but you were inside, you weren't still looking at yourself as a confident woman. Well, now the girls are out there doing crazy. I mean, some of the stories that you hear about what girls and guys too, but and then we say we want to empower women, but instead of empowering them by giving them these likes, we're objectifying them more and more and more. But society doesn't talk about that. And so we're over here on one side, let's empower women, but on the other side, we're still objectifying them to a level that's never been seen before in mankind. Since the dawn of humanity, we've never seen the power of connection like we've had today. You're talking about the fax machine. I remember when my dad brought home the fax machine. I mean, it looks like my printer. It weighed 250 pounds, and the paper that you had to put in was like $1,000 a sheet, and he would get mad that we would waste paper. I mean, I still think in my mind, when I print one piece of paper on my printer, I still think, oh my God, that's so expensive, because my dad imprinted that in my head. You don't waste fax paper.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wait a minute, Vikram, it's paper. Like you got 1,000 sheets. It's one thing to want to protect the environment, but it's not costing you, it's 2 cents a sheet or something to print. Like, you walk by Pennies all day long, you can afford to print yourself something in color. You don't have to be cheap in life, right? But these imprintations that we have, and then, we always want more likes instead of more connection. We're not looking at things the right way. So you have children and you have had success in your life and you've run away and you've done all these things in life, but you've become this woman that is empowering others, which I find fascinating. That's the thing that I find the most fascinating, is that you took the path of least resistance, or of most resistance. You left early, you worked hard, you learned 6 languages on your own.
Well, with the help of a few boyfriends.
But you still had, I was writing
I had to, I had to learn them myself.
This morning I was riding with a group of guys. There was about 10 guys, and they're all much stronger riders. They've been riding for years, and they're doing like 22-mile-an-hour averages. I do like 16, and we're riding together. And I went as hard as I could for as long as I could. And finally I said to one of the guys, I said, I'm gonna have to save up money for a new bike, because you guys are just killing it. They said, Vic, the bike's only going to do so much. You still have to pedal.
That's correct. Yeah.
So go for it.
Yeah, I mean, we have to do the work. That's what I said before. Nobody's going to come and knock on your door and ask you if you're happy with your subconscious mind. Nobody is going to come and knock on your door and ask you if you want a better job or if you want to start something on your own. It's all up to us. And it's, of course, if you want to do something in life, ask somebody who has done the same thing. As I have learned, one thing that I have learned is that people who are successful, people who have achieved something, they love to help. They love to tell you how they did it. It's unsuccessful people or arrogant people who don't want to tell you, and you don't want to have anything to do with them. But people who have knowledge, they will help you. They're not going to do it for you. This is the difference. I see that with coaching clients who come to see me. I know that some people come to see me and they think they wish that I had, or they believe that I have a magic wand. And I will just say, oh, abracadabra, now you're well. No. And when they see that I tell them what to do, that they have homework, that they have to do gratitude practice or whatever I tell them to do, they don't want to do it because they want me to do it for them. And that's not happening. You see, we have to do it ourselves. And of course, as we become older, more successful, wealthier, we also get more power to outsource things. I'm a huge believer in outsourcing, in not wasting time on things that we don't know how to do or we don't like how to do. I prefer to have somebody who irons my stuff and comes and cleans. I prefer that to an expensive handbag, because then I can use the time to do what I like. And look, it's our life. We only have this one life. I had to do an exercise years ago when I was at the beginning of my journey, when I started waking up. I went to a retreat and we had to write our own eulogy. We had to, what do you want them to say when you're there in the box? And I think that's a good life plan, when you know what you want to hear. Do you want to hear that you had a lot of shoes, or do you want to hear that you did a lot of good things? Whatever. But, it really is our life, and it's up to us what we want to do with it.
I did that. They call it the dash exercise. And actually we buried ourselves in a grave, put ourselves in a body bag. And then they threw, that was one of the things that got me this axe right here. We actually had to bury ourselves, and then we come out of it and we write our new eulogy of who we want to be. But it was after a 10 or 15 or 5 minute, I don't know, however long it was, but you're in there in a body bag with dirt on your body, and it's like, it's a whole nother level of what you've experienced, but most people won't even experience what you do. So how do you teach? Because, go ahead.
They don't want to talk about it. You don't want to talk about death. We don't, in the Western world, we don't talk about death. We're not, because it's the only sure thing. We are all going to die. And I think there is a book, I keep forgetting the name, but there's a book about what people regret on their deathbed. People don't regret things they did. They always regret things that they didn't do. And, we think too long about doing something. I got a job. I got this job as a conference interpreter with the police, because I was at the police station one day just helping out, and this guy came and asked me. He said he goes to conferences. It's all over Europe once or twice a year, and if I would want to go with him as an interpreter. And I was dying to travel. Kids were small at the time, and I said yes. I believe in saying yes, because I thought this guy is never going to call me. And he did. About 2 weeks later, I got a call, and I was asked if I would be able to go and accompany Mr. So-and-so to Poland to this conference. And I thought, oh shit, what am I going to do now? Because, I had just said yes. But then I asked my husband, I said, what shall I do? He said, you have to go, because if you say no now, they're never going to call you again. The door is closed. And that was at the beginning of 15 years. I traveled all over Europe with the police. Opportunities, take them, recognize them, don't say no. You can always say, you're not signing anything when you say yes. You're just saying yes. If you say no, the door is closed.
I think the book you're talking about, I just looked it up, might have been The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Is that
possibly it? Yes.
Yes. It's by a gal named, or somebody named Bronnie Ware. But yeah, too many people want everything. We live in a done for you society. Right? We live in a done for you society, and we don't teach people the value of doing it yourself. Now, I don't think that everybody should mow their own lawns when they're in their 30s and 40s and 50s. I don't think everybody should clean their own toilets every single day, but we need to understand the value of the hard work. My grandparents were farmers, and I remember as a kid, when I was young, this is when they had the old system of watering. You would build levees in the farm, and then you'd flood the farm to get the trees watered. Very inefficient way of doing it, but that was the back old school way. And sometimes the levees would break, right? The gophers would come through, they'd dig a hole, and the water would push something out, or you just get a weak spot in there. And next thing you know, the water's flooding the street. So the police calls your house. Hey, Farmer John, your levee broke off of 14th Street. Get your crew out there. So you call your crew, but the farmer typically lives close to the farms. These weren't huge farmers. So I remember one year, I'm 9 or 10, maybe even younger, maybe 6 or 7, 8, 9, and the levee broke. And my grandparents' living room was on the way to the front door, right? Old house, little rambler. So in order to get out his bedroom, you got to go wake up the kids. And he's doing his best not to wake us up. But he woke us, he gets in there, and I'm a light sleeper. So I hear Grandpa getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning normally. Well, this time it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, or 12, 11 o'clock at night, something like that. It was probably 1 o'clock. And he's putting on his boots, and I wake up, Grandpa, where are you going? Put on my glasses. What are you doing? Oh, the levee broke. What's that? Oh, there's water going everywhere. Why are you doing it? He says, well, son, somebody's got to get it done. I said, oh, I'm going to go with you. He said, no, go back to sleep. Your mom's going to get mad. I said, oh, who cares what she says? I'm going with you. If Grandpa's going, I'm going, right? And next thing you know, he's like, all right, grab those 2 shovels, throw them in the pickup. Let's go. We drive out there, and we do the physical labor, right? So we're packing in the levee, and we're working. I see him. He's dumping as fast as he can, because that water costs money, and those trees need the water, and every drop gone is a penny spent. So he's working as fast. So I'm like trying to keep up with him, doing whatever I can, probably just making a mess. And by the time we finish getting it stopped, the workers show up. And so he's like, all right, let's go back home now. And I'm going to drop you off, and then I'm going to come back and finish the job. And I'm like, why are you going to drop me off? He says, well, now I can leave, because I said, no, I'm just going to hang out with you. Why leave now? But that value of hard work is lost in today's society, right? Our kids don't even, they don't even know how to take care of themselves. I mean, one of the big things, like I'm single, I'm 39, I'm dating. And as I'm dating, women are like, do you know how to cook? And I'm like, of course I know how to cook. They're like, oh, we don't. I'm like, how do you not know how to, like, that's a basic necessity to take care of yourself. Washing yourself, doing the dishes, cleaning the house, doing your laundry, cooking. That's a basic necessity. I don't know how to sew, but we live in a world where people don't even know how to take care of themselves anymore, Elisabeth, leave alone doing, how do we expect people to do hard things when they don't even know how to feed themselves?
Yes, but I think it's a matter of willingness, not wanting to learn these things. I mean, if you want it, I'm saying it again, it's all available. You can Google it. You can Google anything you want. Watch a YouTube, learn how to cook, do it. It's not like nobody, it's self, what do you call it? It's the will to do something. It's wanting to do something, or being a victim and saying, oh, I don't know how. Of course, you know how if you want to, just, figure it out. Ask somebody. There's plenty of people you can ask. It's a matter of wanting to do. And you are right. I mean, the fact that so many people do, I love to cook because I love to eat. I love good food. I love fresh food. I try not to eat anything or as little as possible out of a package because it's not healthy. Right. And I don't understand people who don't, well, it's basically everybody else's. As long as people don't come and complain, as long as they are happy with the shit they eat or with whatever, fine. But the problem is that people have this mentality of it's always somebody else's fault. There is always somebody to blame. I could have I'm saying that many times. I could have, I don't know, ended up in the street. I would have had an excuse. I could have said, oh, I had such a terrible time as a kid. But how does it make you feel good? I sometimes feel like asking people, are you happy being so? Because I also know, for example, I know people who the only way to get some attention from their partner, not only women, men as well, is by having a headache, by feeling ill. Right. And I know that, are you happy being ill all the time?
Well, they start off doing it as a way to get energy from the person, right? So it starts out because they want attention, because we live in a society that lacks presence. We can give a present, but we lack presence because we're always distracted by so many different things. And so we live in a society now where people lack the presence, and that's what they want the most, right? It's why kids of rich families end up with the most psychiatric help, because their parents were never around and they just bought them stuff thinking we're going to buy your affection. Well, a kid doesn't care about how much money you have. They care about how much time you give them. It's like why your dog will literally stick by your leg. But we live in this different world. So how do you teach people to not, right? How do you teach the person who's spent their whole life being the victim to get attention, that actually doesn't serve them, because they actually manifest the diseases within their body, so that when they go to the doctor, because when the first time you go to the doctor and you say I'm sick, the doctor checks you out, you have nothing there. Then you say, Mom, I don't feel good. So mom's like, okay, we got to take care of you. Honey, let's take her to the hospital. Let's take her here. Let's take her there. Obviously, this doctor doesn't know what they're doing. So now you get more and more and more attention. And over time, you start to actually manifest the disease in your body. And then one day the doctor says, oh my God, there's a tumor there. How did we miss it? I don't think they missed it. I think the person actually manifested it because that was how they got attention. So how do we teach that, right? How do you empower people to realize that they don't need to go down that rabbit hole to have whatever they want in life?
Well, I think the people who, I don't believe in teaching people who don't want to learn. But the people who come to us, people who like my coaching clients, it's by explaining the subconscious mind, explaining the power of focus, explaining the power of manifestation, and explaining how the subconscious mind works, the reticular activating system, all these things. But, somebody who doesn't want to learn, what you were saying before about the tumor, yeah, I agree with you, but not many people, lots of people will tell you that that's a horrible thing to say, because I did not do that. It's not easy. People who do not want to, some people are uncoachable. I mean, before I see a client, I test them. But when there is a certain way of finding out if somebody is so much in a victimhood mentality that it's kind of you just have to, you cannot go and shake them. You can, first of all, they don't come and see you, those people, but
they don't show up.
No, but those who show up, then you have to explain to them, look, if you don't change this and this and this way of looking at things, I won't be able to help you. I'm a hypnotherapist. I can tell you 95% of the hypnosis that I do is successful. And those 5% where it's not successful, I can usually tell you in advance, because these people don't want to change. They do not want to change because there is a secondary gain in that situation. And when they lose that, the headache or whatever it is, they will not get the attention from a certain person anymore.
Well, they fear that they're going to lose the love of it's why we live in a world. You nailed it on the head, which is what I think is going on in the world right now, is that the people that didn't really get a lot of attention for what they were doing. Now they show up as a victim, and now the world reaches out to them. And now they talk about it so much that just becomes their narrative, right? Because the reticular activating system, the RAC, that always finds what you feed it. So their subconscious mind, those 40,000 thoughts a day go from, 5,000 of them being, oh, I need this, to 10,000 to 20 to 100,000. And so all day long, they're just feeding that. And then they watch social media. I mean, we used to live in a world where, back in the day, we used to live in a world where if you had a difference of opinion, once the conversation was done, you kind of took a deep breath, you came back, you had a beer with the friend that you had a difference of opinion with, because we didn't have friends all over the world. It was expensive to make a phone call. It was hard to talk to your family, just, in a different city, leave alone in a different country across the world. I mean, I remember, to call my dad would call his parents in India, and it was like $10 for a 5-minute phone call. And so you didn't have that access to complain and then find your little group of people who are exactly alike you. And we become so closed off to other people's opinions now that it's hard to even hear somebody who says, no, you need to go and suffer some. Why should I suffer? Suffering's bad. No, suffering's good for the soul. The soul needs suffering. If the soul didn't need suffering, we wouldn't have growing pains.
Yeah. That is very true. And I was just coming back. I used to make phone calls that I always say that if I still had all the money that I made for phone calls when I was traveling in India, actually, I remember I once called somebody from Bhubaneswar, and I never actually managed to speak to this person. But if I still had all the money that I spent on phone calls, I could have bought another house, I think. But about the mentality. Look, I wish we could, people who have woken up, I wish we could help everybody, but we cannot help people who don't want to be helped. We can just hope. I'm giving you an example. When at the beginning of COVID, I was locked up. I had gone to Argentina, which I probably shouldn't have, but I didn't believe so much in this thing. And I thought, it's going to blow over in 2 weeks. Everything is going to be okay. My daughter was traveling.
You should have gone.
I did.
And you did great.
I did. But the day after I arrived, I found out that the country was closing down to all flights in Europe. So I had to leave. Right. And then I went through Switzerland. And when I arrived in Switzerland, I found out that when I arrived here in Cyprus, I will have to go in quarantine. The government locked me up for 2 weeks in a hotel room, which were 2 of the best weeks of my life because I had time to read and think and write. But when I came out, when I started walking around, and I thought, we are now in a pandemic. We need a good immune system. This is important. It is something. There is a virus. People get sick.
Yeah,
but
it's real.
It's real. But depending on how well you are, how well your immune system is, that you won't be hit so hard. I'm 100% sure. But what do I see? Walking around, every single delivery bike was either Pizza Hut or McDonald's, or I don't know, there was no, we had time. We were at home. We had time to cook fresh food, but people ordered, pizza or I don't know. And it's self-responsibility. It's our responsibility what we eat. Nobody can come and tell you what to eat.
Well, the joke was, like, and when you go from your parents' house to college, they say you gain the freshman 15. Well, the joke this year was, oh, I gained the COVID-19 because I gained 19 pounds. And I said, you're walking. I used to own a wellness business, and my population was 55 plus, predominantly women that had, osteoporosis, osteopenia, or they had a history of, that type of stuff in their family. And so they're people that are coming in semi-compromised already. And the joke is that, oh, we've gained 5 or 10 pounds because the gym's closed. I said, let me ask you an honest question. Outside of my facility, which you only come in once a week, did you go to the gym anyways? Well, no. I said, what did you just didn't eat so crappily, right? But why did all of a sudden you feel that you have the right to use the gym's closure as an excuse to get fatter? And they go, well, I said, the gym had nothing to do with what you consumed on a regular basis. I said, so why did you gain weight? So you come into my business with a mask. You want everybody else to wear a mask around you, but you took zero responsibility for your own health. You took zero responsibility for what you knew would make you stronger. We sell supplements in our business. You don't take any of those. I gave you guys a list. I emailed it out to everybody, a list of what 5 doctors in the wellness space recommend that everybody should do. And even if it doesn't work, like, it's still better than doing nothing. Get half an hour of sunlight in the morning, take vitamin D3, take vitamin C, get 8 hours of sleep, drink a gallon of water. I see you drinking your glass, I'm drinking my bottle, right? How many of you guys did that? I polled my center. 3% of people actually got healthier during the pandemic. Now in America, the donut shop, I'm not going to say their name because I don't want to give them any more customers. The donut shop says, you get the vaccination, we'll give you a free donut every day for life, or for the year. So I said, how does our government, all these people say, get the vaccination, do this, do that. I said, your government doesn't protect you, because if your government protected you, they would put a ban on this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't think that the government's got your best interest. You have to be self-preservation is essential. You got to be selfish about yourself, because nobody gives a shit about you at the end of the day, except for you and the 5 or 6 people who, are financially dependent on you. And those are the only people who care about you. Everybody else is going to care about themselves. But we don't have the responsibility of self anymore like we used to. And people just think that they can outsource everything. We can outsource our emails, we can outsource our this, we can outsource our that, we can outsource our health to a pill or a shot. I said, the shot only protects 70 to 80% of the people, and some of the people get sick from it. And it's not even FDA approved. It's not even approved by the government. It's under a special law that the government allows for experimental drugs to be used. But people don't know that. They're just following the sheep in the herd because, oh, my mom got it, my dad got it, my grandma. But there's no responsibility. But people get online and they act like they're the most responsible people in the world. It's a trip to me, Elisabeth. So I honor that you talk about responsibility with your clients. And you force them to do stuff, and you actually turn people away. You turn away good, hardworking people because they're not willing to do the work. Because if they don't do the work, what's the point of talking to them, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is the thing, I could take their money, but I don't want that. I like to see people shift. I love seeing people heal, or I love seeing people understand, you can literally see when I'd like to film my clients sometimes when they come and when they leave, because they walk much more upright, this shift has happened, they feel better. And this is because they understood that they have to do the work. I can just, what is it? You can take a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. And this is basically what you can do. When people who promise you that they will change you, nobody can change you. You can change you.
I love it. Elisabeth, we're coming up on our time. It always seems like the best conversations don't have enough time to talk about. Where do people find you?
I am with my name on most social media, Elisabeth Villiger Toufexis. Facebook, Instagram is in my name. I have a website called The Soul Kit because my book is called The Soul Kit, First Aid for the Soul. And my baby, I have a COVID-19 baby, even at my age, is my podcast called Most Memorable Journeys, talking about good old times with telex machines and no paper tickets. When you lost your ticket, you've had it. Yeah, I think that's more or less. And with my name, Elisabeth Toufexis in the Clubhouse. That's where we met, Vikram.
So I'm going to spell your name for people because not everybody's going to be able to see it, and people don't read the notes. So it's ELISabethVilligerToufexis. Follow her online. Definitely. Is your podcast out yet?
Oh, yes, it is. 7 episodes are up.
Yes. So get to her podcast because I'm sure it's going to be entertaining because she is a hilarious human being. And then go get the book, The Soul Kit. And the website is
thesoulkit.com.
Super easy. What are some parting words you have for people that are still stuck in this victimhood mentality? The people that say the world's happening to me and not for me. What is you're saying to take more responsibility for yourself and stop outsourcing it? What would you tell a client?
Well, I ask, are you happy the way things are? How happy are you the way, how would you feel if this and this was different? How would that make you feel? And that usually brings out a lot of answers. That's usually when they start actually understanding it themselves. They're starting, they're finding the solution themselves.
I love it. That is a great question. And that's, I just wrote it down. Are you happy the way you are?
And my driving question that I learned from Tony Robbins many years ago, that I ask myself every morning, what can I do today to make this the best day of my life? And then people like you turn up.
Thank you. You are too sweet to me.
Oh, well, I had a good time, even though I was a bit worried about the axis behind you, but we're good.
For those of you who are not on the YouTube, there are two real axes sharpened and ready to be used on my table. And they're both axes that I've actually earned from doing physically challenging things. One was both of them were your basic trophies. And I actually, the first one, I have an axe up at the project compound because I actually quit in 2019. But if we're a man of our word, if we're a human of our word, if we're a woman of our word, if you make a promise, you complete it. And I told everybody that I was going to come back and earn my stripes. And I came back in 2021 and I earned it. And I knew that I was going to go into a 75-hour pain slosh where you're crawling through fields and you're lifting heavy things and you're sleeping like 3 hours and you're in the ocean and you're doing super hard, intense things for 75 hours. And I actually had a fractured toe, Elisabeth. So I had all the excuses to not go. But the coach, one of the instructors, called me and said, hey, you're ready. I've seen it. Just change your exercise routine with this, this, and this. And he gave me the encouragement that I needed because I didn't want to go back. and I got my axe and I'm so excited for it. And then I did a bike race that I had no business being in either because I literally should have died on it. But I got an axe for that too. And so I was like, I guess 2021 is the year of the axes. And to me, the metaphor is cut out the bullshit excuses, cut out the nonsense, cut out the limiting beliefs, cut the cords that no longer serve you and ask, are you happy the way that you are? I love that question. I think it fits perfectly with the theme of 2021. Are you happy the way you are? And if not, grab the axe and cut it, baby.
Excellent. Yes. Famous last words. No, I totally agree.
I love it. I can't wait for us to connect more. And thank you so much for your time. I don't know what time it is in the world where you're at.
It's 7:15 in the evening, and I had a wonderful time. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Elisabeth. Talk to you later.
All right.